So what about the case where the absolute value inequality is going the other direction? So here we have the absolute value of x is greater than c. Here we have a different interpretation. This means that x is less than negative c or x is greater than c. And if we look at the number line, we can understand why this is. The absolute value of x means we're looking for numbers whose distance from 0 is greater than c. Well, all these numbers in between negative c and c have an absolute value that is less than c because their distance from 0 is less than c. So once we go down the number line in the positive direction, once we pass c, all of a sudden now once we're on this side, these numbers have a distance from 0 that is greater than c because they're further down the number line. So that's where the x greater than c part comes from. So it would include these values right here. As we move in the negative direction, once we pass negative c, we'll get values whose distance from 0 is greater than c. So we also want to include these values out here, and it's round brackets because we have a strict inequality, so we're not including those values c and negative c. So it'll be those as well. That's where the x less than negative c part comes from. So you can see anything on the number line who has a distance from 0 greater than c, once we get out to here we have distance c, anything to the outside of that interval is going to have an absolute value greater than c. So when we have the absolute value of x is greater than 4, well, we can think about what this means on the number line. We've got 0, 4, and negative 4. Well, things that have a distance from 0 that's greater than 4, well, that's going to be everything on this side of the number 4. So everything going this way. And then also everything on this side of negative 4, that has a distance from 0 that is greater than 4. So we're going to include all those values. Well, this side gets represented as negative infinity up to negative 4. This side would be 4 up to infinity. And then we connect them with a union symbol. And that's how you would write that in interval notation. Note that if we wanted to look at a problem with a greater than or equal to, say absolute value of x is greater than or equal to 5, then we'd have 0, 5, negative 5. We want values whose absolute value is greater than or equal to 5. The only real difference between this and the previous problem is that we're now going to include these points because the distance from 0 can be 5, so that would include the numbers 5 and negative 5. Giving us a square bracket there. Square bracket there. So in interval notation, we would write this as negative infinity up to negative 5. The negative 5 gets a square bracket while the negative infinity does not, because negative infinity always gets a round bracket, but we're including negative 5. This interval would be 5 up to infinity. Again, round bracket on the infinity, square bracket on the 5. We connect the two with a union.